Okay, well, morning everyone. We've got a new project just outside, so let's go see what it is. And there she is. So this is a 2015 GSXS 1000F that my dad has bought to turn into a track bike after riding my GSXS 1000 at Cadwell a couple of weeks ago and finding it way more comfortable and quite a lot of fun compared to his Gixxer 750. So, as I said, this is going to be a project that I'm building for my dad. This bike has come with a few modifications already. So, it's got a carbon fibre front mudguard. It's got carbon fibre hugger and chain guard. I don't know if you can see that in this light. It also has some, let's see if I can get it on camera, some power bronze paddock stand bobbins and crash protectors, and I'm pretty sure those gold bars aren't standard, but I'm fairly certain they're the same profile as the standard. It's also got some Oxford heated grips, which I will definitely be taking off because you don't need them for the track. It's got some shorty levers that I'm fairly certain will be replacing with normal long ones, because my dad has already told me he's not a fan of the shorties. It has an SP Engineering slip-on that will be going because we'll be putting a full system on this at some point to get rid of that big ugly box underneath. And it's got a tail tidy, which should be standard on all of these because the standard tail tidy on them is ugly as anything. Apart from that, it's pretty standard. There's no quick shifter currently. That is on the list of parts to put on. It's got some LED indicators, but again, this is going to be a track bike, so they'll be coming off. And it's got a dark black screen, which I'm going to try and recommend to him that he replace with a clear one so he can see through it, because I don't think you can actually see through that. It's just black plastic. It's not even clear at all. But this is the project. So I will be shortly getting it up on a paddock stand and starting to strip it down ready for some new parts. I ordered last night brake lines and the quick shifter, which should be arriving hopefully in the next week or so. But before that, I need to work out how these fairings come off. So let's get it on a stand. Right. Now, strangely, whoever had this bike before took the strap off the seat, which I've always found quite helpful for getting on a stand, because it gives you something to hang on to. But never mind. Right, where are we starting? Let's start at the front, and I'm going to take everything off, so let's start with the screen. Now, I did briefly pop this off yesterday, and these bolts are some of the longest screen bolts I've ever seen. They go on for miles, but I don't know how much of that is actually threaded, because usually if bolts are that long, it's because the thread that it's going into is so deep, and not because it needs to be. Should also say, I have already popped off the bar end mirrors, because obviously track bike you don't need mirrors, and they were ugly and quick to take off. Still going. Like I said, I don't know how deep these are actually threaded or if they're just getting stuck in the rubber underneath. But these bolts are incredibly long for screen bolts, especially seeing as how deep they are actually in the screen. It's all a bit of an adventure for me because, as you'll have seen, mine is the naked version, which means I don't have to worry about fairings and screens too much because everything's a lot more accessible. There's the screen off. Right. Next up, we need these little plastic side covers off. I don't know about anyone else, but I find little lids like that are absolutely perfect for putting nuts and bolts in. So there's a couple of screws. And then there's a little popper. Oh, that was one other thing I should have mentioned. Currently, it's on bar risers, which will be coming off because, and I suspect possibly getting lower bars at some point, because he was one slight complaint he had about mine was the bars were a little too high, which he wants higher bars compared to the Gixxer, but not too high because it just makes it awkward. And that's something else we'll be doing in a little bit, is taking those risers out. Now, somewhere buried underneath this big bit of plastic on both sides are the air intakes on these bikes. Now, the one on my Naked had a bit of a plastic cover on that mostly covered it up, but not too bad. This is just completely smothered, and I don't know how it expects to breathe. So one of the things we will definitely be doing is making sure there's a nice clear path for air to get into the airbox. Now that we got these little covers off, I think, as soon as we're stripping it down, I will start with popping these indicators, or at least getting them loose, because these are going to need to be removed. That's one side. Let's pop the other cover out. Other side. And then I need to work out where all the rest of the bolts and buttons and stuff are so I can get these sides off. Okay, as you can see, we've got the sides off, and once I'd done that, I went round and put all the little bolts and fixings back where they came out from, seeing as these fairings probably aren't going back on, at least for a very long time. So if I put all the bolts and stuff back, then at least I know where they go when it comes to putting it all back together, because I will forget by then. Next job, I got to get the front off, and then I got to work out what's going on with all the cables inside, if there's like sublooms for the lights, because that does need plugging in for the dash, but obviously I don't need the lights, so I'll have to work that out when I get there. But now that we got the fairings off, it's all a lot easier, because apart from the headlight, which is obviously different to the Naked, I know what I'm doing with the rest of it because it's all the same. Okay, now that we got the headlight assembly off, there's a few things that we're going to have to work out for the project. Firstly, our initial plan is to find a Chickasaw race fairing that will come up to somewhere around here, and then leave this top bit with the screen on because of the higher bars, which would be fine. But most track or race bikes, the front subframe, this bit, has a piece that comes up here for the fairing, such as on here, where it comes up and it's nice and easy to fit the fairing. So there's a bit of faffery we're going to have to do with that. Secondly, where the dash is, it doesn't clip into this subframe. All it does is sit there, and then I believe is held through the top here, which means we're going to have to work out how much of this we need, if it is just the black bit, which I'm hoping, or if I need more of it, which will become more difficult. If it is more of it, then what I will probably at least look into doing is seeing if a different front subframe will fit those bolt holes that has that arc for a fairing, because obviously that will make mounting a fairing more easy, and all we'll have to do is work out how to fit the dash. But that is a problem for when we get a fairing, I think, and once we work out what fairing is going to fit best with the least amount of bodging, because there will be quite a bit of bodging, because obviously I can't find a race fairing for 1000F anywhere. To be honest, I can't find an aftermarket fairing for 1000F anywhere, because that was my first plan, because then all I've got to do is fill in the bottom for a belly pan, do a little bit of bodgery, but I couldn't find one, so we're going to bodge something together with a jigsaw fairing. So, wish me luck. Now I've got to work out what the next step is. Right, now that we're back from lunch, I'm going to lower the bars, see if I can get these grips off without too much damage, and probably start getting into the tank ready for when the quick shifter arrives, along with rear set, so I can do all that at the same time. I'm expecting brake lines probably this week, so I need to get in there so I can sort all that out as well. So let's get cracking. That'll be an issue. Right. Yeah. I wondered if that would be an issue. So, because these risers need longer bolts, and we don't have the standard bolts. Can't do them up properly at the moment, which isn't the end of the world because it's going to be here for a little while. But I am going to need to get some proper length bolts for it to fit that properly. But in the meantime, I can still carry on with all the other bits I need to do. Well, I'm not sure how well you're going to be able to see, but underneath all the fairings, the engine is absolutely filthy. So I think before I get any deeper taking the tank off, I'm just going to give the whole thing a wash while the fairings are off and a half decent clean, and then I will get to work stripping it deeper. Well, now that the bike is all soaking wet on account of it raining quite heavily just as I started giving it a quick wash, I think we're ready to start stripping the tank and everything else off in preparation for brake lines, quick shifter and rear sets, which all should be coming in the next couple of weeks. And then hopefully some bolts so we can take those risers out shortly. Well, let's have a look what this air filter looks like inside the airbox, shall we? The airbox looks very clean, that's a good sign. That there baffle's going to be coming out, that's just a waste of plastic as far as I'm concerned. Air filter looks pretty good, nothing major, a little bit of dirt but only a little. To be honest, I'm not surprised it looks fine because these air intakes with the fairing on are almost completely covered, so for dirt to get in there has got to go a long way and find a really complicated route. But yeah, airbox looks very clean, which is very good. And there we go, that is as much as I can do until I get some more parts. So we're ready to do brake lines. I'm going to do an ABS delete. Obviously the pump will still be in there, but the lines won't be going to it. What else? Obviously we need to get the lines out from all of there, which is why the tank is off. And we need to get into up to the top of the engine for the quick shifter when we get that as well. So that is as much as I can do until I get some parts in. Looks a little bit less than it was when we started, but don't worry, it will all get put back together, except with race fairings instead. Well, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for part 2, where we will be doing quick shifter, hopefully brake lines, and any other parts we have by the time that video comes out. Thanks very much.